Late game heroics for the Florida Panthers as they avoided the sweep against the New York Rangers. Jonathan Quick may be calling it a career, but the young Panthers had something to say about that.
You're Locked On Panthers, your daily podcast on the Florida Panthers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome into this Tuesday, April 14th edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, the nation's #1 sports podcasting network, and it is your team every day. Thank you for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day. I'm Armando Velez from the Hockey News. You can follow me on X at Monoman12. Follow the show anywhere you listen to podcasts and on YouTube. And shout out to the everydayers who come back here and get your daily Florida Panthers fix. So, Panther fans, grateful to be back here once again on another edition of the show to discuss everything in the world of the Florida Panthers. Today, we are going to discuss what Jonathan Quick means to the NHL and my time of watching hockey and the era that I watched Jonathan Quick in. We're also going to discuss the other lottery odds scenarios that would need to happen and what to watch for on Tuesday night. We are also going to discuss our 3 stars of the game and the moment when we knew the game was won in segment number 2 with the Florida Panthers coming up with a win. But in this first segment, we are just going to give our biggest takeaways as the Florida Panthers defeat the New York Rangers by a final score of 3-2 in regulation. Cole Reinhardt scores his second of his 2 goals with 150 left on Jonathan Quick to give the Panthers a win, and it looked like that the New York Rangers were going to come out with this one as they had the ice tilted in their direction in the third period. It looked like that the Rangers were going to find a way to win, as it was announced earlier in the day that Jonathan Quick would be calling it a career and it would be his final NHL game played for him, as he was drafted in 2005, and now the last game of his career, unfortunately for him, ends up in a loss for him and the New York Rangers. They improved their draft position. The Panthers stay in their position at 7th, but they're still not officially locked in to their spot. But the biggest takeaway for me in this one was the fact that the Panthers, they went into the direction of leaning heavily on the young Panthers there when it came to this game, because although Gustav Forsling is the elder statesman in this one, and only 2 guys dressed for this matchup who played in the 2024 Eastern Conference Finals, which is Gustav Forsling and Eetu Luostarinen. Gustav Forsling was the last in time on ice for the Panthers in this game as far as defensemen, and then Eetu Luostarinen was second to last in time on ice for forwards. So it was relied heavily on the depth guys and the guys fighting for roster spots there. And I mean, the Panthers coming out with a bang in this one, where they got to the 2 goals in a span of less than 2 minutes apart, with Cole Reinhardt finding Vinny Hinostroza from one blue line to the next, and then a little give and go with Tobias Bjornfoot, and then nobody picks it up from Cole Reinhardt, and then on the save from Bjornfoot on the backhand, Jonathan Quick kicks it into the slot. There's no defensive coverage for the New York Rangers there, and then Cole Reinhardt knocks it in. And then, like I said, less than 2 minutes later, a block shot from Mackie Samoskevich right on the blue line. His momentum carries, and then his hands, his speed, beating Braden Schneider, and then roofing it over Jonathan Quick there. And it took a lot. I don't think Mackie Samoskevich realized that puck went in. For a second, I was thinking, did that go in? Did it not? But the camera actually did not pan to the referee, where he actually pointed to the net to indicate that the goal was in. So we didn't know until the buzzer sounded in the arena, if you were watching this on TV. So that was my experience from last night. It was not in the arena for that one. But the New York Rangers made their adjustments as the Florida Panthers had the ice tilted in their direction in the first period, as the New York Rangers forecheck was having a hard time getting to the Panthers there. But they really adjusted as the game went on. Although the Corsi in for the New York Rangers was in favor of them 14-11. They were blocking a lot of shots, and the Panthers were just not getting the pucks to the net later on in the period where the New York Rangers were not getting any chances off the rush. Neither the gaps were at really tight for the Panthers, but with the inexperience of this group and a lot of guys still not even having more than a handful of games in the NHL, like we mentioned, Merrick Allshire, Ludvig Janssen. Although Ludvig Janssen on one of the penalty kills did have a great instinctual play where the puck was trickling over to the low slot, and then as he was coming off the bench on a change, he just quickly sweeps it out without even thinking twice about it. So we see some great little instinctual habits that we see from this group. And then for the New York Rangers, them getting a whole bunch of chances, not only in the second period off the rush, but in the third period where they were really in the Panthers zone for a long period of time. And there was one shift, especially in the third period, where the Rangers were making a lot of those east to west passes. Guys like Adam Fox were really starting to really close in tightly in their own end. As far as the transition plays, there was this one opportunity that Wilmer Skoog set up Jesper Boquist. Jonathan Quick goes out of his net. The net is open, but Adam Fox is there for the sweep out of their own net. And Daniil Tarasov coming up big. I mean, there was multiple opportunities that guys like JT Miller had on redirection opportunities, especially from where the New York Rangers were feeding them when they would win their board battles in the corners, and then off puck from Daniil Tarasov going from the RVH, and then how quickly he was able to push off the post to get to the top of the crease and make the stops. I mean, it was a great adjustment for them there. Even though earlier in the game in the second period, there was a lot of opportunities that were not created for either team. But Daniil Tarasov coming up big, and now he's been now getting a lot of the workload here coming down the stretch to see what the Panthers have as the season is winding down. I mean, you have a good enough sample size now, but this is not a one start here, then alternating back and forth, because I mean, Sergei Bobrovsky is a two-time Vezina Trophy winner, two-time Stanley Cup champion. There's nothing more to see from him, but there's still something to see for Daniil Tarasov on what he can bring, as far as maybe a second thought of him possibly returning next season. Although I would still lean on another option outside of Tarasov. And yeah, it hasn't necessarily been a fair opportunity based on the injuries on the blue line, but he's been solid in this elevated workload for him coming here down the stretch. So, and again, the fact that Mackie Samoskevich and Cole Reinhardt, those are the two goal scorers, with Cole Reinhardt getting 4 goals in his last 3 games now, and the Panthers are picked them up off of waivers from the Vegas Golden Knights. I mean, those are hopefully your diamonds in the rough that you're hoping that succeed here. I mean, we've seen it over and over again with the Panthers on the not giving up as much on certain trades. We spoke about Sam Bennett, Brandon Montour, even a rental in Vladimir Tarasenko, even though he was more proven before he even got here, winning a Stanley Cup in St. Louis, and then not having to trade as much for Vladimir Tarasenko from the Ottawa Senators at the time. And the fact that they're able to succeed here. And Cole Reinhardt, he's still, I mean, he made his NHL debut later on in his career, around 24, 25 years old, but now he's 26, and now his goal production has now he's passed it from his previous career high of last year, where he had 3, and now has surpassed it in just a matter of 3 games for himself there, and getting those elevated minutes. And also his time on ice has been up from the time of him being with the Ottawa Senators and then Vegas Golden Knights previously before here. So a lot of opportunities for him, a lot of opportunities for everyone else here. And again, I spoke about it even previewing the game against the Rangers, letting the kids play, and that has been the motto for the Panthers here down the stretch. Crazy. I spoke about the Wilmer Skoog chance to Jesper Boquist that was set up earlier. Where Adam Fox swept it out. There was a penalty that Wilmer Skoog took in the third period where he touched the puck with his hand and then and called for a penalty. Crazy that when both of these teams met with uh, in the last weekend of March, there was an opportunity that the Panthers had in front of Igor Shesterkin's net. Adam Fox touches with the puck with his hand to get under the pads, and the Panthers were mad about that, and they didn't get a call from Adam Fox. And then just a few weeks later, that same thing happens against the same team, although it was a few different faces there dressing up for the two teams there. But again, the Panthers were able to still stop the bleeding there, as the shots were 13-4 in the third period, and Panthers coming up with a win. And Mackie Samoskevich even said it after the game, how winning is still fun, and even though the games don't mean anything, it creates some good vibe and possible great momentum going into the offseason, which we will discuss the lottery odds scenarios based on what's gonna have to happen before the Panthers do take the ice. We're gonna discuss that more in segment number 3. But coming up in segment number 2, we are going to discuss the 3 stars of the game for the Panthers, and then the moment when we knew the game was won. We'll discuss that more next here on the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by 5 Hour Energy. And if you got a sweet tooth like I do, you know how tough it is to find that perfect treat without all the sugar. That's why Cotton Candy 5 Hour Energy Shots brings that nostalgic flavor back in a whole new way. And this is that classic cotton candy taste you remember, with a tasty caffeine boost and zero sugar. It's a quick, easy way to satisfy that sweet craving while keeping things simple and on the go. I've always loved cotton candy, but I can't be eating sweets all day, so this is a perfect alternative. The flavor really does bring that throwback fruity vanilla vibe, and it's surprisingly smooth. I like how convenient it is too. It's just a small portable shot I can grab whenever I need a little pick-me-up. It's become my go-to when I want something sweet without going overboard. Bring on the sweetness with Cotton Candy 5-Hour Energy Shots. Available online now at 5hourenergy.com or on Amazon. Also, today's episode is brought to you by Indeed. And workplace chaos, deadline stacking up, inbox overflowing, and the one position you have still sitting open. When the pressure's on and you need the right hire, this is a job for Indeed Sponsored Jobs. Indeed Sponsored Jobs helps you reach the people who actually fit what you're looking for: skills, experience, and location, so you're not just hoping the right candidate stumbles across your post. And there's a stat that says it all. In the minute I've been talking to you, companies like yours have made 27 hires on Indeed, according to Indeed data worldwide. So if you're looking to spend time searching and more time interviewing candidates who check all your boxes with Indeed Sponsored Jobs, and listeners of the show can get a $75 sponsored job credit to help your job get the premium status it deserves at Indeed.com/podcast. Just go to Indeed.com/podcast right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? This is a job for Indeed Sponsored Jobs. Segment number 2 here on this Tuesday, April 14th edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Thank you once again for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day. And don't forget to check out the Everydayer Club for an ad-free episode and access to a group chat with me and other listeners of the show. Tap the link in the show notes to learn more. So it's a Florida Panthers win, which means we are going to discuss our 3 stars of the game and then discuss the moment when we knew the game was won. With the Florida Panthers winning by a final score of 3-2 in regulation. And then previously, with the Panthers having a 2-0 lead, the New York Rangers getting 2 goals, one later in the first and then one late in the second to tie it at 2. And a very tight game as the Florida Panthers came out with a win. But before that, I want to congratulate public address announcer Andrew Imber for completing his 500th game behind the mic at Amerant Bank Arena, and then the Florida Panthers getting a win there. And also, it comes in the same week as Miami Heat PA announcer Mike Biamonte is possibly called his last game with the Miami Heat at Kaseya Center, which if the Miami Heat do win both of their games in the play-in, we'll get at least 2 more games of Mike Biamonte. And I can't wait for 20 years from now where we're doing this exact same celebration for Mike B as we are Andrew Imber. And I personally have heard Mike B multiple times outside of the Miami Heat games because I am an FIU alum. He does do FIU. He did do FIU football. And Andrew Imber did FAU football for a little bit and also did some TGL. So congratulations to him and for many more years to come, hopefully there. So congratulations to Imber there. But let's discuss our 3 stars of the game in the moment when we knew the game was won. So Mackie Samoskevich, second goal against the New York Rangers in as many weeks, 6 goals in his last 9 games. It's been a kind of a true sophomore season, a true sophomore slump for most of the season for Mackie Samoskevich, but surpassed this double-digit goal mark. It's going to be difficult for him to get the 220 here, but this stretch that he's been on has given a lot of Panther fans hope that he could continue this on into next season as he continues to grow into his game, into his body, into his mind, and everything. And of course, with Mackie Samoskevich being his UFA year not coming until 2030 and the cap rising, a nice little bridge deal could be on deck for Mackie Samoskevich there. And or maybe he just improves his value in a possible trade this offseason if the Panthers do have a player that they do want to bring that could be a better, more seasoned option. And again, this is a Bill Zito draft pick. I mean, the success that we've talked about a whole bunch of draft picks from 2022 that have already made their debut with the Panthers not having a first or second in that one. But what about what he's done in the 2 first-round picks that he has actually made in Anton Lundell, 2-time Stanley Cup champion, and can be a 2C anywhere. And then Mackie Samoskevich growing into his own. It's taken him a little longer than expected. I mean, Mackie Samoskevich was coming out of college while Anton Lundell was already playing pro hockey in Finland. So can't necessarily compare the two on just their trajectories on what they bring to the table. Obviously, one's a center, one's a wing, and one's also a little smaller in size there. But we've seen Mackie Samoskevich just grow as far as being more of that of a guy who could be on a checking line at times that could bring the offensive scoring punch as well. And just because he's not getting the goals doesn't necessarily mean that he's necessarily had a bad season, because at least that part of the game, as far as the puck pressure that the Panthers like to put on opponents, he's growing into that system. It will it fit long term? That has yet to be determined for Mackie and with this Florida Panthers group. Number 2 star, Daniil Tarasov. And I mentioned the workload for Tarasov that he's going to get from a few games ago now to the rest of the season. He's going to get the start more than likely against the Detroit Red Wings on Wednesday, but stopping all 13 shots when the ice was tilted in the New York Rangers' direction. And, you know, the 2 goals that he gave up, I mean, not necessarily his fault from the faceoff, which was a lot of patience from Matthew Robertson with a faceoff win from Noah Laba, and then the patience that Robertson had to get to at least allow the screen to develop. And with Daniil Tarasov already committing to his right, didn't see that puck whatsoever. And then Gabe Perreault off that shot from Adam Fox off the rebound, and then Gabe Perreault was just right there for that redirection to tie at 2 towards the end of the second period. And then going into the third with a clean slate from both teams, you never know what's going to happen in a third period. Obviously, a lot of Panthers Nation was thinking, okay, this is one step closer to at least increasing the lottery odds and getting them up the board there. But Daniil Tarasov, again, a strong game for him, stopping all the shots in the third and doing it when it mattered most. I think that's really and also getting a little bit of time to relax, because as the game was winding down and the New York Rangers calling that timeout, especially with 5:22 left and 1 minute and 11 seconds remaining on the power play, there's a lot of that time to think where the New York Rangers were also keeping their top power play unit on the ice for them. So Daniil Tarasov was still able to be right there in between the ears to at least make the saves. And like I mentioned, those multiple redirection saves from JT Miller when he was set up right at the net front. So second star is Daniil Tarasov, but number one star for me, Cole Reinhardt. The 2 goals, the GWG on the evening on Fan Appreciation Night. I mentioned the him getting picked up off of waivers from the Vegas Golden Knights, and the fact is, he has a year left on his deal here, and that's another one-way contract that the Panthers do have coming into next season. It's going to be a nice training camp battle. He could possibly bring more of the production in for a cheaper salary than Jesper Boquist can possibly come next year. Jesper Boquist, I do believe, maybe a guy on the group that could be shipped out come this offseason or maybe sometime during training camp there, as a lot of teams will have a lot of salary cap space. And if he's placed on waivers during training camp, that could be an easy contract for someone to pick up, because I don't think that there's a lot of value in Jesper Boquist with the fact that he has been scratched for a good portion of the games in the middle of the season. But Cole Reinhardt coming in and actually producing and playing the key minutes here for the Panthers and bringing a whole bunch of speed and great hands. And also he's doing it on the fourth line for the Panthers here. So although when you look at this Panthers lineup that's put together, I mean, you could see multiple fourth lines here, but on paper here for this game, that is your fourth line on what's put together here for this group. So congratulations to Cole Reinhardt, another great performance and being one of the stars of the game. The moment when we knew the game was won, honestly, I had my doubts that the Panthers were going to come out with a win. I thought that they were going to come out with at least 1 point, and that at least this was going to be a game that was going to be going to overtime. And the New York Rangers, with a lot of the talent that they still have, which it's mind-boggling that this group has just not gotten it together. Where Vincent Trocheck had 1 shot on goal, Brodzinski has had 3. Alexis Lafreniere only had 1 shot on net, which Alexis Lafreniere has played a lot better since the New York Rangers traded Artemi Panarin. So maybe this is a time where he's actually going to reach that new level. And honestly, there's rumors about him getting traded for Shane Wright during the deadline. And honestly, I think if you're making that trade, if Seattle and New York made that deal, I think Seattle would be on the better end of that. And I think there's just so much untapped potential with someone like Alexis Lafreniere. I mean, we saw it in the 2024 season, right before he got that massive deal from him, how he elevated to a new level. But also the fact that they got a lot of speedsters there as well. Because Zibanejad, I mean, we even saw in the Olympics how well he can be on the power play, where when Sweden tied it against the USA in that quarterfinal matchup, it was a 6-on-5 situation where those are the situations in hockey where Mika Zibanejad thrives, and the fact that he has a no move clause, he's not going anywhere. I mean, that's another, if he's lower in the lineup or on the wing later on, I think that's still a guy that you could still build around there, but maybe not having the lead role on the Rangers there. So we'll see how that goes about as the offseason progresses there for him. And with those guys and 3-on-3, I thought that it would be a situation where it'd be like hold on to your butts with the lack of experience for the Panthers there versus the experience for the New York Rangers, because 2 games in a row, you look at the talent on paper with the Leafs and the Rangers, you think that the Panthers don't have a chance, but this is why you play the games. And this is why, again, it's very exciting to see that the young guys are still showing up and trying to play hard for that logo, for the shield, and putting on a performance there. But again, it doesn't help with the Panthers lottery odds, and we are going to discuss that, and then also the impact of Jonathan Quick's career in the NHL. We're going to discuss that next here on the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by Rocket Money. If you've ever opened your bank account and thought, where did all my money go? And you're not alone. Keep track of subscriptions, spending, and bills can get overwhelming fast. That's where Rocket Money comes in, helping you take control of your finances all in one place. It tracks all of your subscriptions in one spot and can help cancel the ones you don't need with just a few taps. It automatically categorizes your spending so you can actually see where your money is going. And you can set budgets and stay on top of upcoming bills. It makes everything feel more organized and gives you a clearer picture of your finances day to day. Rocket Money is a personal finance app that helps and cancels unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, and helps lower your bills as you grow your savings. Let Rocket Money help you reach your financial goals faster. Join rocketmoney.com/locked on. That's rocketmoney.com/locked on. Third and final segment here on this Tuesday, April 14th edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Thank you once again for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day. And also great news in the South Florida hockey scene with the Panthers now launching their Florida Junior Panthers girls travel hockey team, which is launching here now. And don't be surprised if the daughter of Matthew Tkachuk one day is joining that group, which, yes, you heard that correctly. We heard about Matthew Tkachuk and his wife, Ellie, bringing in a baby to the world. And we just found out during the media availability after the game from Paul Maurice that they did bring in a baby girl to the world. So congratulations to the Tkachuk family there. And also congratulations to the Florida Panthers on continuing to grow hockey in South Florida. And especially because the group over there in Estero, the Florida Alliance, the girls team traveled to Quebec for a tournament there and won the tournament. A group from Florida winning a tournament out in Canada, one of the provinces over there that is rich when it comes to hockey, and it's the Florida team that comes out with a win there. And now it's another program that is starting here in our state. It's more than just championships for the Florida Panthers and their success, and even the Tampa Bay Lightning, which they bring the best out of each other. As much as we don't want the Lightning to win here, it's still so great for the growth of the sport and seeing more rinks being built. More people want to take up some ice time as well. So this is so great for the game. So games to watch for tonight for the Florida Panthers lottery odds. First of all, let me actually discuss where the Panthers sit now. Again, they are right now with 82 points and with one game left. Right now, they are the 7th worst points percentage in the NHL. But not everybody has played the same amount of games. Seattle did lose to the LA Kings last night, as the LA Kings did clinch their spot in the playoffs with not a lot of regulation wins. Of their 35, only 22 have come in regulation. 19 overtime losses, and then 13 of them past regulation. So a lot of overtime / shootout wins. But Nashville and San Jose were eliminated. But San Jose did do the Panthers a favor in the lottery odds by going on the road and defeating the Nashville Predators, which was basically their last chance in their fight for the playoffs, as they had a great second half. And you know, it's there's a lot of possible evaluation on the roster for Nashville for Andrew Brunette, because there's going to be a new general manager coming into the mix in Nashville. But San Jose did do the Panthers a favor. The Winnipeg Jets did not, unfortunately. They did not defeat the Vegas Golden Knights last night. The St. Louis Blues did come out with a win against the Minnesota Wild there. So right now the Panthers and Blues are tied in points, but the Blues do have a game in hand. And it's going to be really interesting because both teams have 31 regulation wins, 34 regulation overtime wins, the first two tiebreakers. But the Panthers do have more of the total wins, 39 wins to 35 for the St. Louis Blues. So if the Panthers do defeat the Red Wings in a overtime or shootout, and St. Louis gets one regulation win and one regulation loss, the Panthers will have the better lottery odds than St. Louis. But if it's one regulation win for the Panthers and then one regulation win for St. Louis and then one regulation loss, it'll be the Blues who will have the better lottery odds. So something to look out for, because the St. Louis Blues are in action tonight at home at 9:30 against the Pittsburgh Penguins, which Pittsburgh is locked into their spot at the number 2 seed in the Metropolitan Division, which they will actually be facing the Philadelphia Flyers. Do you guys remember the last time the Flyers and the Penguins actually faced in the playoffs? It was the same exact year where the Panthers needed the New York Rangers to defeat the Flyers on the road at Wells Fargo Center, as the Panthers played that night at home against the Buffalo Sabres, and then the very next night against the Boston Bruins, where it was that makeup game from the snowstorm. All they needed was a Rangers win on the road, and then the Panthers get 4 points out of 4 as Boston was resting their guys in game number 82, and the Panthers would have been in the playoffs that year. But unfortunately, that did not happen, as it was the Panthers really going on that run with all those games in hand, with Bob Bugner behind the bench for the Panthers there. That was the last time we saw that matchup between the Flyers and the Penguins, the Battle of the Keystone State there. But the team right ahead of them is the Seattle Kraken with 79 points, but a game in hand. So a Panthers regulation loss against the Detroit Red Wings and 2 wins for the Seattle Kraken, although it's highly unlikely that it'll happen, because Vegas is still fighting for positioning there, as they will face Vegas on Wednesday at 10 p.m. and then the Avalanche on the road. It will be 2 road games in Vegas and Colorado on back-to-back nights. Although Colorado has locked into the President's Trophy, they did defeat Edmonton last night in a shootout, and also Vegas is also fighting for the division title. So the Oilers will actually play on Thursday while Vegas plays on Wednesday. So that an Oilers Canucks game actually might not mean anything, and they might have the division. Vegas might have the division locked up, which they also have a lot of overtime losses as well. So we might see Oilers Ducks in round 1. But the next matchup for the Panthers fans to watch for the lottery odds is Jets at Mammoth. I mentioned the Los Angeles Kings winning against the Seattle Kraken last night, but the Mammoth are not locked into their wild card 1 spot, and the Jets, they only need 1 point on the night in order for the Panthers to at least guarantee them at least not between 9 as the lowest and 6 as the highest. The highest they can go is 6, with the Toronto Maple Leafs leading 3-0. Dallas coming back, leading 5-3, and then losing in regulation. Yeah, I mean, hey, you could say that's a group that knows how to tank, but still, that leaves the Panthers out of getting possibly number 5. But Seattle can still get to number 5 and knock Toronto out of that spot. But a single point for the Winnipeg Jets will guarantee 9th or better, because the Winnipeg Jets do face the San Jose Sharks in game 82, and someone needs to win. If the Jets would win that matchup, if they get a point tonight, they will surpass the Panthers. If San Jose wins, they would also pass the Panthers in points. So that's a big game as far as the lottery odds, and we need to hope that the Jets get at least 1 point. And like I said, Utah is battling to avoid the Colorado Avalanche, and LA, they're hot despite being overtime beneficiaries. So we'll see what happens there for the Kings, as they are in action also tonight on the road in Vancouver. So we'll see what happens there. But I do want to take this time to discuss a legend of first ballot Hall of Famer that is going to be in Jonathan Quick. Did play his last game with the New York Rangers on this, and 3-time Stanley Cup champion, twice with the LA Kings, once as a backup with the Vegas Golden Knights, unfortunately coming against the Florida Panthers, which you could also say Columbus Blue Jackets legend, Jonathan Quick, even though he never played a game for them. But third round draft pick for the LA Kings, and also did not really make an impact into the LA Kings until like year three into him getting drafted. And really, again, goaltending development is something that needs to be really patient, as he was sent up and down from the NHL to the AHL. And the fact is, the Kings' AHL affiliate was all the way in Manchester, New Hampshire, which is all the way across the country. So not close by and not an easy travel schedule for Jonathan Quick there. And it's no guarantee, although you can draft goaltenders in any single round for it to win. That there's no guarantee that he was going to be impactful for the LA Kings there, and also the fact that he ended his career for his home region team because he's from Connecticut, and the team close by to him. I like that it was a storybook ending, but also the fact that he faced the Rangers in the Stanley Cup final in 2014. That must have been a roller coaster of emotions. It was the team that he grew up watching, but the fact that he's looking for legacy there, but also getting a chance to be the backup behind Ryan Miller, who at the time was the greatest American goaltender ever, and then Jonathan Quick surpassing him, now getting the bulk of the starts for Team USA in 2014. TJ Sochi does not happen without Jonathan Quick making the great saves that he did when it mattered most there. And it was against Sergei Bobrovsky being on the other side. And it was Sergei Bobrovsky leading the charge for the Florida Panthers for that handshake line, as we saw how mad Jonathan Quick was giving up that goal to Cole Reinhardt. And then after the game, going straight to the locker room. And then the Panthers were just waiting and waiting and waiting. And they wanted to pay their respects. And with Anze Kopitar, yes, it's going to be awesome seeing Anze Kopitar back in the playoffs for one last dance. Them being in the same exact draft, the LA Kings nailed it there, and it brought them 2 Stanley Cups for their franchise, the only 2 in their franchise's history. And 2012 being an A seed and going all the way and coming and then for coming back from 3-0 down against the San Jose Sharks in the second cup run, which they had 3 game 7s in that run alone. And then even in the final, even though they won in 5, 3 overtime wins against the New York Rangers, including 2 double overtime. The famous Alec Martinez GWG there, which I still stand to this day that the LA Kings have the most annoying goal horn in the entire NHL, but that's neither here nor there. But the fact that they came down from 3-0, down 3-2 against the Anaheim Ducks, and also the fact that in 2012, they only lost 4 times in that entire run. And that rivalry between Chicago, LA, back and forth with who won the Stanley Cup. The Western Conference was the more dominant conference at that time. But he's in that echelon of that era of Marc-Andre Fleury, Carey Price, Henrik Lundqvist, Roberto Luongo, and just the era of goaltending. And now with Jonathan Quick calling it a career, that page has officially turned for this. And Quick is going to be definitely missed. And hats off to you, Jay Quick, on an outstanding career, although it did not end with a win there. But I'm gonna remember him for the rest of my life, especially a guy who's more of the athletic goaltender, not really more of a structure, more sprawls in his own net and just creates the acrobatic saves there, which brings a lot of excitement to the game, which that's what we loved Jonathan Quick for. I guess it really is in his name for how he was able to stop multiple pucks from going past the goal line there. But that's going to do it for today's edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Thank you once again for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day. Coming up on Wednesday, we are going to preview Game 82 between the Florida Panthers and the Detroit Red Wings. And after Tuesday night's game, we're going to discuss what will have to happen for the Panthers to officially clinch a top 10 lottery slot. We'll discuss that more next on Wednesday's edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Thank you so much for listening. And in the meantime, if you like what you're hearing, please subscribe to the podcast to be notified every single time the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast jumps into your podcast feed. Don't forget to also subscribe to the other shows on the Locked On NHL Network, including Locked On NHL, Locked On Fantasy Hockey with Flip Livingstone and Stu Roden, and Locked On NHL Prospects. Thank you once again for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day. So I'm Armando Velez, signing off. And you've been listening to Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, part of Locked On Podcast Network. We're your team every day.